Good morning, welcome to day 3 on the main stage here at Sign and Digital UK 2019. We've already this week talked a lot about printing, all to do with colour and paper and everything. Let's mix it up a bit today. We're going to talk about a whole new market and a real big opportunity for sign makers and printers everywhere here. We're going to talk about digital screens, and I'm really happy to say we have people representing kind of the 3 pillars of digital signage technology, but the hardware, the software and the content. So if I start with you, Chris, introduce yourself and tell us a bit about your company.
Thanks, Jack. So my name's Chris Rushton, and I'm the publisher at a company called Kapow Network. And essentially, we run a network of digital screens in London that inform the community. They support the local high street, and we also sell advertising on those screens. So we're quite content heavy as a network, and we're here today or at the show actually, to talk to sign makers and commercial printers about moving into digital signage and offering that to their customers.
My name's James Priest and I'm from Assured Systems. We're a specialist hardware manufacturer. Traditionally we were an industrial computer company, so we come from environments that are quite extreme. So we create digital signage systems that are enabled to be outside, in sunlight, extended temperature and those kind of things. And we're here today to talk about the hardware.
Thank you, Jason. And Mark, please.
Hi, good morning. My name's Mark Easterbrook. I'm here on behalf of Screenspace Digital Signage. We kind of sit in 2 areas. We're both a little bit of the software in that we design, develop our own CMS to make digital signage very easy. And we're also adding into that the hardware side as well, in that we've essentially developed a range of players that can turn any screen into a digital sign. Our kind of pitch and the reason we're here is we feel that the print and sign industry, there's a lot of people out there who really want to get into signage and digital signage. They don't know how to do it, and we can provide a very simple, low-cost, sort of affordable way of doing that.
Thank you. My first question really is, on the face of it, digital signage is digital screens around everywhere, so what are the opportunities now? It's not too late, is it? Would you like to start with that one?
Yeah, well, digital signage is very much still a growth area in the UK. In fact, I'd say we're behind Europe and the States. I think, unlike maybe print and signage, your customers are all using print and traditional signage. And so you're all competing against each other probably on cost, or you're finding a niche and a special application to try and add value. I think with digital signage, there's just a lot of people out there who still haven't got it. And of course, for companies like us, we don't know those people, and it's very hard for us to acquire those customers. Whereas the traditional companies, so the traditional sign maker or the traditional commercial printer, they already know those people. So for me, it's very easy for them to say, why not? Are you guys thinking about digital signage? Because we can help you do that. So I think there's a massive opportunity.
And so, as a hardware provider, you're obviously selling into various. Is this sort of sign maker, print market a new area for you that you're pushing into?
It is. We came to the show really because the opportunities are there. Again, as just to heart what Chris said, that you already have the client base. So turning, fixed signs into digital signs is really relatively straightforward. And I think maybe 10 years ago, digital signage was very expensive. People didn't really know what they were doing. The technology was potentially clunky. It didn't last a long time. These days, display technology, large format LED or LCD displays and players and software, the prices come down dramatically. So I think that there's a really easy way into signage, and the recurring revenue that you can make from the content that you create currently for your fixed signs, you can quite easily transfer that over to your digital signs and keep a revenue stream coming in. So I think it's a fairly easy way in for you guys.
Okay, so for you, Mark, what makes a good digital signage network?
For me personally, it's 2 things. Number 1, the simplicity of it, and number 2, having all the elements working together. I think that's really key. One of the things that is very difficult for people trying to get into the market is you can get the screens from one place, you can get the CMS and the software from another, players from another. What you're seeing now is a number of companies who are providing a solution that's end-to-end, and for us, developing that end-to-end solution, I think that's key to allowing people to be able to enter the market at a low sort of risks level, because I think that's very important. The investment for digital signage can be high. Anything you can do to mitigate that risk for people, I think that's really important.
Okay, and I guess the technology helps with that. I mean, as a sort of a punter, you see Ultra HD, whatever, jumbo screens. What is the latest technology in the hardware sector?
I think there was a huge acceleration in development of hardware from probably the early 2000s. You talk about 4K screens. Within digital signage, is that important? Probably not. That's more of a kind of consumer grade TV level stuff, I think. So, I mean, but anything kind of full HD is fine. I think probably the biggest development is the reduction in cost. The larger format LCDs have come down hugely over the last 10 years and certainly over the last 5 years. So to be able to put a large impact sign up, a digital sign up, is much lower cost than it was 5 or 10 years ago. So the capital investment is much lower, which obviously makes the barrier to entry easier. So I think that's the development. We also have developed a range of displays that are in weird and wonderful shapes and sizes, so you can get stretch displays now that are long and thin if you've got applications on shelf edge, or if you want to put them, a long and thin light box on, in a bathroom or something like that. Or we do square displays if you want to put them in a frame and put them on the wall, so make them look like a picture. So there's a bunch of different developments, but I think the main one is just that the barrier to entry in terms of cost has come down quite significantly.
Okay, thanks a lot. So I was going to ask you, Mark, in terms of for a sign maker print company, what are the skills that you need? You don't want to be getting a whole new IT department in just to do this, do you? How can you sort of start yourself off in this?
No, categorically not. One of the things that I think is a real benefit for those looking to get into digital signage, there are a number of choices out there, and a lot of them are very simple, very easy to set up. One of the things that we've tried to do with our particular niche is to make it so that somebody could get set up without any technical expertise. That I think is going to be really key for the future growth of digital signage. One of the things that I would probably imagine is a lot of the people here today have no idea how to use digital signage, and one of the things that's putting them off is that fear of the technology. If you look at a lot of the systems now, they're very simple, they're very easy, and they're very intuitive. And I totally agree with what James is saying. One of the biggest drivers is the prices are coming down. The quality is going up and the prices are down. So my message to people really would be, don't let the technology put you off. There's a lot of systems out there that are really easy to get up and running very quickly.
Okay. I mean, it's interesting talking about the TVs themselves. So
We don't call them TVs.
what do we call it? Digital screens?
Call them, screens or monitors.
Screens or monitors.
There's a big difference between a TV and a monitor.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can tell you what the
Go on.
differences are.
You usually work
Yeah,
on
the
it.
difference between, people do use TVs for digital displays, but a TV really is only designed to be on a maximum of 8 hours a day. So if you're in a commercial environment and it's on for 16 hours a day or sometimes 24 hours a day, the display won't last for any longer than probably 6 months. The other problem is that TVs tend to default to certain settings. So if the display goes off, or you turn it off at the wall at night and you come back in, or the cleaner takes the plug out to plug in the Hoover, once you turn it back on again, it'll default to an HDMI setting where there's no input, and it won't find the input, which means you've got a blank screen. So it's very important to differentiate between consumer technology and commercial grade technology.
So like all things, having the right tools for the job is the main
Absolutely,
point.
yeah.
So, and obviously modern television, so we will talk about televisions, because you have these smart TVs for getting content onto your telly.
Yep.
For your digital monitors, it's a similar thing. You want to get content on this. You don't use the same sort of technology, presumably.
Basically, the smart part of a smart TV, there is a processor inside, so it's normally an ARM-based processor that you'd find in a mobile phone. The commercial grade stuff does include a processor, and what digital signage software companies have done cleverly is they've worked with the display manufacturers, TV manufacturers like Samsung or LG that produce commercial displays, and you can actually install the software directly onto the display itself now. So you don't need a separate box. The actual display can run it natively. So that obviously reduces the complexity of the installation. Obviously, it makes it more reliable because there's nothing to be unplugged or to fall out, and ultimately the cost is lower. So that is a very simple way forward for once you want to display with the actual player inside it. All you do is put power into it, put it into a network connection, and away you go.
Okay.
I mean, for me, on the TV thing, as we're talking about TV, I mean, we put screens into the high street we know our screens face inwards, so they're in places like coffee shops and restaurants, hair salons. We've got them in leisure centres, ice rinks, and they face inside in darker environments. They're not in the window, yeah. And what we see more and more, especially more the independent retailers, are using TVs and putting them in the window of their premises, and it's like having a print poster. And then every time the sun comes out, taking the poster down, because that's exactly what happens. You just simply can't see those displays, and then it looks rubbish. So, you can't use, I would say you could use a smart TV in certain environments, and it's an easy and cheap step up if you just want to explore. But if you want something for the window, it's just not going to work. It doesn't look good. You've got to get specialist gear. And so we have independents talk to us about helping them. And I start with, look, it's not going to be cheap, because you simply just can't buy a smart TV and use that for that application. I'm sure you can in others, but we just don't get involved with that.
We just to add to that, we do a whole range of high brightness displays designed to be used in Windows. So you have to use the right technology, as Chris said. But once you do latch onto the right technology, an in-window display is one of the most effective ways of capturing the attention on the high street. So it's definitely a good way forward.
Yeah, I guess integrating that screen with whatever else is happening in your shop window.
Yep.
Which gets on to my next question, which is about, as a print company, you're kind of used to going on site, you know what you're kind of dealing with, you've got to set up things to put your print up. What are the pitfalls that you guys that they'd have to deal with if we're going to do some digital signage? What are they going to have to look out for? What skills they're going to have?
Well, for us, we installed our first high street. Crazily, some of the biggest concerns for us were, how do we get to the power source? And I know it sounds crazy, but then you've got to think about how long a lead is, and you've got to think about where do you get that lead from? And let's say you've got a magic box behind your commercial screen that's your player, you've got the content on. That's got a separate power source. So now you need two plugs. And if you've got it on the wall, can you fit that plug behind the screen and somehow fit the screen over it? The answer is no, actually. There's also the problem with internet connectivity. So does that place have internet? Can you connect to it? Is it reliable? Or can you fall back onto a phone signal if that falls down? It's all the questions that you really haven't thought of. And then, if you've kind of got your own installer team, take two of everything. Because I tell you, if you're an hour away from where you're putting the screens in, it's the thing you haven't got, and all of a sudden, you're looking around. Does the pound shop sell it, or is there an electrician in the local area? It's really quite scary how the simple stuff is absolutely the stuff that causes, the big problems. So for me, it's
Okay.
yeah. You've got to learn for yourselves, but that's why people like us, partners, can help with that kind of first part of getting into the market.
I was going to say, we don't want to scare the sign makers. We're trying to say this, but maybe, Mark, you've experience of sign makers doing this, and maybe there's a checklist.
I think, again, as with everything, preparation is key. One of the things, and Chris touched upon it, I would say before you are looking at digital signage, you've got to do a decent survey about, number one, what you're trying to get before you go into digital signage. That's a separate discussion. But also, number two, you need to be looking at all of the things that sort of Chris was touching upon there, location, Wi-Fi. One of the things that we found really interesting, it's really educational. I'm always amazed at the poor quality of some of the Wi-Fi we find in commercial premises. If people were using that at home, you'd be certain that their kids would be on their case telling them this is no good, this is not happening, Mum and Dad. You walk into a commercial premises and it's quite surprising. One of the things that we've certainly tried to do to help our guys, our installers and our resellers, we've given them a series of what we call pre-flight checklists. So they're just a series of little things that perhaps they've overlooked, little tests that they can do, just to ensure that when that installer or the reseller walks in there to do the installation for them, it's got the maximum chance of success. So my message would be, it's all about preparation.
Good.
I would be inclined to agree with all those points. One of the things, just going back to the network issue, is that a lot of businesses won't allow you onto their private network for security reasons. So, which isn't insurmountable. we offer a bunch of products now that have an integrated SIM and an integrated cellular module in them, so that you can connect with very low cost monthly fee for data. You can buy a prepackaged data SIM and you can connect via that method. But yeah, I think preparation, like you said, is the key point. So, but that once you start rolling these things out, the pitfalls become quite obvious, and you should hopefully learn by any mistakes that you make initially. But we're here to help with those problems and give you the advice that you need to get you up and running. So hopefully you won't make any mistakes.
Okay, so print companies, sign makers, some can be quite niche, working fairly tight markets, but from your point of view, their customers are looking for signage, whether they might look for print, they might look for digital, they're the same people. So, I mean, are there some niche markets at the moment that haven't been tapped that you think very much could come to the fore?
I think digital signage can be used anywhere. I mean, displays are becoming smaller and cheaper and lighter, and you see them in toilets, and you see them in anywhere really where there's a dwell time, which I guess in a toilet there is. But yeah, you can put displays pretty much anywhere these days. Digital menu boards, so takeaway restaurants and restaurants. So McDonald's I think they've probably done it the best. Their installation and their content is awesome. But obviously the smaller independents are starting to exploit that now. The beauty of it is that breakfast, lunch and dinner, you don't need to change the menu. You can, if you've got things on promotion, excess stock and things like that, you can change it within a few seconds. So it really does make sense. But in terms of vertical markets, there are corporate communications is a good option. So it doesn't have to be advertising to sell products. It can be corporate messages that you want to get across to your employees, health and safety messages, or the CEO is in on Friday, make sure your desk is tidy, or the Christmas party is on this date, or recycling, or sales figures. So there's a whole bunch of areas where digital signage can be used and exploited to an advantage, and obviously that makes it very saleable.
Do we think that sign makers, print companies can go to their customers and say, yeah, we can put a sign there, but actually, if you put a digital screen there, this is what you're going to do? And is that a way forward, do you think?
I think the combination of print and digital is a great combination. Look at the trade show booths here today. There's one right behind you that's got a digital display that's playing a video which gives a message, but then obviously the rest of it is fixed. So I think it's the perfect combination. So you probably would always use a digital signage company and a print company. So what about if you use the company that did all of it? It kind of makes sense.
Yeah, we were going to say the same.
No, absolutely. What my message I think would be to the sign and sort of print makers is don't view digital signage as a threat. View it as an opportunity. It's going to sit alongside your existing business. It's going to complement it, and then as it develops, it's going to grow your business as well. And I think that the sort of guys are giving exactly the right message. Use them together. That's the most effective way to get the most out of digital signage. That's what I would be doing.
Okay, so we've talked a bit about technology. What's coming up? What's around the corner on the hardware side particularly?
I mean, I think I touched on the different shapes in terms of displays, so long, thin displays or square displays. We're seeing some round displays now. LED technology, which is kind of large format. There's one somewhere over there, I think, that's hanging from the ceiling. I mean, that was horrendously expensive 10 years ago, but the cost of that is coming down hugely. So I think that the nice thing with LED, it's quite modular. So it comes in square tiles essentially. So you can make a long thin display, you can make a square display. So it's kind of a Lego set really. So I think that the technology, there's not been a huge evolution in technology or revolution in technology. I think it's just the fact that it's more accessible because the cost is coming down. It's become more professional. It's become harder wearing. So it's longer life. So your capital investment is protected. So I think that's really the main exciting part of the market.
Okay, where do touch screens fit? Is this in a slightly different area, or would it?
Well, yes, touch is part of signage. It's kind of point of information or interactivity, which we also offer a range of touch displays. But I would say that the majority of the market is for projecting a message. If you want to interact with that, I mean, if you go to a shopping mall, for example, there'll be a totem in the middle. You want to find a particular store, you type it in, and yes, that technology is there. But I mean, I think mobile phones are are prevalent now, so people kind of understand how it works and how it's used.
Yeah, I suppose you've also got the like the whole Connect thing, and people you can just move in the way of it, and it can respond to you that way.
Absolutely. There's a range of camera systems now that we put into our displays, which they can tell your age and your sex, and they essentially can tailor the advertising for you, so it can change the advert on the screen, or it can just pick up a profile for that particular location, so that your advertising can become more pinpoint. So, over the course of 6 months, the kind of demographic that's been walking past that screen, how long they looked at it, whether they engage with it. So it gives you a better understanding of exactly what you're doing and exactly how to make it better.
Okay, so Mark, that kind of leads on to what is the content? I mean, print is all about the graphics and what you can display. What is the content that's going to really drive this industry forward?
What I would say is the biggest differentiator for digital signage would be video. Now, whether that's a video background that's just attracting people, or the use of a video to promote a message, but that's the key differentiator. Video for me is, and also the actual ability to do the animations as well. I think those two together are the key things that, if I was looking at digital signage, that's what I'd be looking for.
Okay. You kind of agree with that?
Well, we've been looking at a project which uses a transparent screen, so you can look straight through it. And that basically is in a high-end retail area. So you've got a Samsung pad. It gives you some choices, and depending on your choices, the screen reacts. And basically the graphics can cover up portions of that screen and highlight certain products. So these are screens that you can see straight through, and the graphics actually then make them opaque. So it's from a creativity point of view, you've got to understand that technology and how you can make the most out of it. I mean, for me, technology that's coming around the corner, it's about, the content management systems. There's loads of them out there, and there's different ones that fit different shoe sizes. Some are going to cost you a lot of money and a lot of money to run, and some aren't going to cost you so much money. Now, for you guys, it's about what your customer wants. Are they a big, massive customer with 1,000 branches? They're going to need something sophisticated. Are they, have they got 2 branches or 1 and they need 3 screens? You need to find that solution. And years ago, that wasn't available, and now it is. So it's exciting, yeah, some good stuff.
And how do you manage that content? I mean, do you have to be there? Can you do it from outside of the world? How do you run all these screens?
No, the easiest way, and the majority of the content management systems now are all cloud-based. One of the things that we've benefited from as an industry is people like Amazon. You'll find a lot of the content management systems now are hosted on AWS, which is part of the Amazon business, so it's super reliable. But it also means that you can literally access and change your content anywhere in the world. You could be sitting at home, you've got a retail shop, or your customer's got a retail shop, and they can be there changing the content. They don't have to physically be there, and I think that flexibility and that ease of changing things, it gives you opportunities to change and refresh your message a lot more.
So I asked the question because you said about having the camera in the screen that can sense your demographic, as it were. Can the content adapt to that?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. Yeah, you can change it depending on their age. So if, for example, if you've got a 55-year-old male in a shopping centre, it might be a golf advert. It's and it works very well. It used to be touch and go. When I first saw it 10 years ago, we were on a trade show booth over in Amsterdam, and men with ponytails would walk up to it and it would play a woman's advert. So it didn't work in those days, but now it works quite well. So yeah, I think that's a good leap forward.
Well, that's got to give sign makers, print companies, got to give you some ideas about how you can approach your customers and make those suggestions that give you a bit of extra revenue. But how are you going to do that long term? How are you going to really make money out of digital signage on a long term, continuous basis? I don't know who fancies that one.
Okay, so the thing is, people approach a hardware supplier, we need some screens, so that's an easy thing, isn't it? Because you've got a TV at home, I think so, and you've got a phone, so everyone's used to hardware, and so your customer makes that investment, you make some money off it, great, and then it sits on the wall, and then surely that's it, you're finished. I suppose the best way I describe it in kind of context is if you buy a wide format press, yeah, you've got to feed it with a substrate and some ink, and you've got to keep that machine turning over, and then as it turns over, you make some money. Yeah, and that's how it works. You might have special applications, or it might be a bigger machine, but that's how it works. You know, you print something on something, sell it, and make some money. Every screen that you put out there, every screen, think of it as a press. Yeah, but what you've got to do is not feed it with ink and paper. You've got to feed it with content. And what we do essentially is we have a piece of software that we can license to our customers. So you can own the software. You can say, for us to do this for you, there is a monthly charge. That might be £20 a month. It might be £2,000 a month, depends on the customer. And every time we get a new piece of content for that customer and upload it, we charge them a small fee. But of course, the more of those small fees we get, the more money we're making. And actually, once we've set that customer up and we've got 4 templates, 4 designs, it's very, very quick and simple to upload. They don't need to know that. It could be 4 hours as far as they're concerned. And we can also have different levels of service. So we could say, if we do it same day or same hour, it's going to cost you this much. But what if we do it in a week? Well, it'll cost you kind of this much. And so it's really about the content and content ideas, and then managing that for them. Because of course, once you own that software and you're running their screens for them, and most people don't want to run their own screen, you're stuck with them, or they're stuck with you. It's very difficult for them to then get rid of you. Whereas for a sign maker or printer, they might get 4 quotes for a job, and you're just used for that job, and then you're discarded and off they go to the next. I know you've got some loyal customers, but this is really a way of getting customer loyalty. So that's how I see that. Yeah,
that's interesting. I mean, customer loyalty is a key thing in any industry, and if the more you can offer as a sign maker, the more likely it is you're going to build those relationships long term. But Ed, any comment on that? No? Okay. So, just going to kind of draw to a close a little bit. These guys have been watching, there's sign makers all around the show. How are you going to do this? How are you going to get into this sector? What are your top tips for making that leap? Who fancies that?
I'm happy to discuss that. What I would say is find something and try it. There's plenty of opportunities out there. If you talk to a lot of the guys, they'll do trials, they'll do loan samples. It's something that you need to experience for yourself. Just take a leap of faith. Digital signage is happening. Your customers are going to be asking for it. I would be saying, just try something for yourself and get a feel for it, get a bit of understanding, so that you can then go and, before you get serious investment, you've got a little bit of knowledge, and that's really key.
I think I'd add something to that, obviously, if you do want to try it, it's something that we can hold your hand with. I mean, we're happy to do that. I mean, it really isn't rocket science. There's a lot of black magic that gets touted around technology, but it really isn't too difficult. I guess, once you've picked it up and taken a look at it, the software, there are different packages, which some are more intuitive than others, but that depends on the complexity of the client, how many displays they've got, and what they want to do with them. But for the most part, the more simple packages are quite intuitive. Think of your social media platforms and uploading photos to those. They really do make it that easy. So, the key bit is creating the engaging content, which you're doing anyway through printed material. So it's really just turning that into digital. So it really isn't that difficult to do, and we're happy to help you hold your hand if you need us to.
I guess if you want to minimise the risk of going into any new sector, but for this sort of thing, maybe you could invest in a screen and a bit of content management for yourself,
yep.
For your own business, but that's something that you can then hire out or do as a one-off job and bring it back in to get your feel for the market, maybe, and build
Absolutely,
it
yeah. I'd agree with that.
Okay. So it's great that you're here at, Sign, this used to be Sign UK, now it's Sign and Digital. It became Sign and Digital quite a long time ago, but now it feels like it's starting to embrace the digital. It wasn't meant for digital, or your sort of digital, but we can kind of count it. Now, I know there's an area that you guys are at. Do you think this is something that's going to grow within this industry? There's something where, the point where there'll be a lot more guys like you here at the show like this?
We hope not.
You want it all?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think it's a growth area. It's a logical step. I'm sure there's people here, your customers are coming to you now and saying, you do great work for us on print, on sign, on graphics. Can you do digital signage? So it's definitely there, the demand's there. It's just finding a way for you and your business to tap into that demand.
Yeah, good. Now, somebody said something to me about digital signage being the 5th screen, and I had no idea what they were talking about. So, Chris, you said you could explain that.
Right, so yeah, you may hear some people refer to digital signage as the 5th screen. Now, there's a book out there, and it's called Unleashing the Power of Digital Signage. It's quite old now. It's by a guy called Keith Kelson, I think. It's well worth actually getting, and it's quite a big thing, but, you know, this is how I learnt about the industry. But I'll explain a little bit about the fifth screen. Now, you've got to understand that we sell advertising, so it's probably a bit more relevant to me, but I think it's quite interesting anyway. So the first screen is basically cinema. And that was the first screen that is people we came across. And of course, cinemas make money, or they used to make money through ticket sales only. But of course, there is now advertising on cinema screens as well. But you know, predominantly they are ticket sales. The second screen, that is a television. And outside of the BBC, of course, the way that television companies or television channels make money is through advertising. Now, the interesting thing about a TV and advertising is that when you're sat at home watching a TV, your goal is entertainment. You want to enjoy something. It might be a film. It might be, God forbid, reality TV. And so as soon as an advert comes on, your brain goes, don't want that. You know, turn off or turn over. And that's why they started to sync all the channels together so that when you turn over, the adverts are on every channel. So it becomes very annoying.
That's so
so it's hard for marketers to advertise on tellies. They have to make it interesting or something clever, and that's hard. The third screen is your computer. Okay, so advertising on computers is also very difficult. You've got pop-up blockers on computers that are just automatic now. Obviously, you've got things like Google Ads. Now, if you're looking for trainers and a Google ad follows you around about trainers, people don't mind that because it fits in with what your goal is. But if you're trying to work and you have adverts following you around, it's at odds with your goal. Your goal is to work, and the adverts are trying to sell. So it's difficult on computers. The fourth screen is your mobile phone, and that's the most difficult screen to advertise on. There are things such as gamification. I don't know if you know about that. That quite works with apps and advertising, but really advertising on a phone, especially display ads, is a very, very difficult thing to do. Now the fifth screen are digital posters. So we don't have them landscape because landscape is a telly. We have them portrait, so that's why we call them digital posters. And what we do with our network is we put lots of useful, local, engaging content on there. So you're sat somewhere and it's relevant to your local area. It could be bus times, it could be weather, and then we put something on about the site that you're in. So if you're in an ice skating rink, it could be free hire for ice skates for the next 2 hours, something like that. But when the advertising appears on that screen, you didn't have any preconceptions or goals against it. So advertising on the fifth screen really works. And in fact, we ran an ad campaign for a company. They booked 4 months advertising with us, and after 2 months they had to change it because the thing they were advertising became fully booked. So that is the power of the fifth screen. And when it's done well, it can really rival the early slots of TV advertising. So for a publisher like me, that's great news. So that is what a fifth screen is.
Oh, thank you for that. Do you know what? I like that because adverts do drive you mad in all forms, but if it's in that format where it's basically making a blank wall look attractive and it's providing useful information, people might start liking adverts.
Well, I think it's the point of dwell, isn't it? If you're sat in a doctor's surgery and there's engaging content to read, it's better than staring at a blank wall or looking.
Yeah, no,
I guess
But if you're doing something, watching a program, and suddenly get hit with something, you immediately despise it. No, okay, it's good. I just wonder if there's any questions from out in the hall here. People tend not to ask questions there, but however, these guys are around for the rest of the day. Yep. What stand are you on, Mark?
F33.
F33. You guys are on
B40.
B40, which is in the corner up there by the cafe. So if you'd like to go and have a chat with these guys,
free coffee.
Please do. Free coffee. Free coffee. I'll be there too. Brilliant. Thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you.
It's been a lot of fun, and thanks for watching. And please do come back at 12 o'clock where we're going to be talking about colour and colour management.
Yay.
It'll be very exciting. Thank you.